So hi everyone, my name is Tony Xavier and I'm the Chief Learning Officer of IMS. So just to give you a brief background as to who I am and what I do. So I'm a mechanical engineer. How many mechanical engineers? Any mechanical engineers here? You can use the chat to let me know. Yeah, quite a few. Yeah. So, like most mechanical engineers, I did my engineering as mechanically as possible. I had very good marks, absolutely, no doubt about that. But I was very clear that I'll be a very horrible mechanical engineer. So straight away, what do you do when you're a hopeless engineer or when you don't like engineering? You do your MBA. So that's how straight away after CAT, after my graduation itself, I did my MBA. I joined IIM Lucknow. That's where I did my MBA from. So once I finished my MBA, I was very clear that I'll take up sales and marketing, but I'll sell something that I absolutely like. So I love clothes, and that's how I got into the Aditya Birla Group. They have a firm called Mother of Fashion. So I was the area sales manager for Lee Philippe, Van Heusen, Allen Solly, all of these brands. It was an absolutely great job because I could walk into any company-owned store and buy anything at 25% of the price of the MRP. So when I say 25% of the price, it's not OFF, it is OF, right? So that's a huge difference. So I did that for a couple of years. But in India, when you're growing up, there is only one thing. What is that one thing that everybody wants or expects from you when you're growing up in a country like India? Just marks and doing well, and nobody gives you anything else. There is no other goal that your family or society or anybody puts in front of you. So like most Indians, I marks were the things that were expected of me, and surprisingly it was something that I really liked. I was competitive by nature, so always was really good at tests and test taking. It is very much like a sport for me. So that's how after 2 years of working, I was feeling that I needed something more academic. I love tests so much. And that's how I joined IMS in 2006. So from 2006, so it's been a very long time since I'm there with IMS. So right now, I head everything after the post-enrollment process for IMS. That's what I look at. But when I say I love tests like crazy and that's how I took this up, it doesn't mean that I love it from a distance. Right? So since to the year 2000 or after that also, I've been taking the CAT almost every other year. So whatever has or hasn't happened in my life, more or less in November, CAT has happened. Obviously, during the pandemic, I didn't bother to go ahead and put in that much effort during the pandemic to go and take. So I would have taken the CAT something like 17 or 18 times by now. The GMAT I took twice. I took it for the first time in 2008 and I got a 750. The second time I took it in 2017, I got a 770. So that basically shows that age has nothing to do with test taking or aptitude test as such. The GRE I took in 2011 and I had I have a 333 out of 340 in that. The reason I'm saying this is not to brag about my scores, but just to tell you that when I am talking about what I'm going to talk about in the next 90 minutes, I have a complete idea of why I'm saying what I'm saying, right? So because aptitude test is something that is absolutely a part of me. Right? So that's about me, but I always like to get to know the audience also a bit. So I just thought I'll do a couple of questions at the beginning through a poll just to, know a bit more about you guys. So you can answer the question. Pardon the typo, it's supposed to be both of the above. Yeah. So bulk of you are IMS students who haven't read my blog. So the catwriter.com is a blog that I write. So just wanted to know if, how many of you are reading it. So 15% of you are aware of it. Yeah. Okay. So those who read the blog. So I'm the person who writes the blog. Another question. Good to know, Mansi, that you read most of my blogs. So this is important for me. 76% of you are attending or taking it for the first time, a few people for the second time. And I think a very small percentage, maybe one or two people are doing it. One person is doing for maybe the fourth time or the fifth time. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. The last question. So to get into your graduation, have you prepared or taken any test, prepared for or taken any test? Whether you cracked that test and gotten or not, but have you prepared for a test? That's the question. Maybe the college you got into gave it to you based on your 12th marks, but have you prepared for a test anytime? That's the question. This is fairly interesting. It's exactly dead, even 48%. So slightly half of you have actually taken a test and prepared for it. and slightly more than half of the audience has not taken a test. So this technically, if I'm not wrong, would be the first time you're taking the test. CAT 22 will be the first time maybe you're taking an aptitude test or an admission test to get into something. Okay, okay, good. Now, so we can start. We finished this part, which is let's get to know each other. Things to keep in mind. So this is a overall orientation session, right? So this is not a specific session for, okay, how do I help when I prepare for my quant? How do I prepare for all of that? My blog is there. We'll be doing sessions later. You'll have your my plan sessions. All of that is there. This is more or less an orientation session rather than a specific session. You may have doubts as I'm talking about what about this, what about that, but understand that I have been doing this for quite a while now with students. So over the course of 90 minutes, I would more or less have cleared most of the doubts that would arise. So I will be dealing with one step at a time. So just stay patient. I'll have two clearly defined Q&A slots where I'll stop and say, okay, now around this part, do you have any questions or queries? So I'll give you the slots to ask for. Otherwise, you can just sit back and enjoy the session there. Yeah. Now, I always like to start my sessions with a story. So it's called the College Board versus Stanley Kaplan. Right? So those have a class at 7:30 and all. It's fine. So the recording will be there for all of you guys. It will be on YouTube as well as other things, because all of these special sessions are tough to, every time slot somebody other will have a class. So that's why. Yeah. So the College Board was a Stanley Kaplan. So the College Board is the body that owns the SAT and that conducts the SAT, which is the first admission test, aptitude admission test in the world. So it is used for undergraduate programs to do your undergraduation after 12th in the US and many other schools internationally as well. SAT is the exam. So the College Board is the organization that has it. And it was started, if I'm not wrong, somewhere in the late 1920s. And Stanley Kaplan is the founder of the first test prep organization in the world. It's which is what in India we very derogatorily call, coaching center, so to say, right? So the first test prep organization, which is Kaplan, right? So Stanley Kaplan was the founder. So there is a very interesting story in terms of as to why this is important. So before there was the SAT, people would to get admissions into, say, the prestigious colleges in the US, you either had to come from a very, very good family or have connections. It's usually the wealthy and people from good backgrounds or wealthy backgrounds who essentially got in, or influential backgrounds, like kids of politicians stuff. Everybody else, poor kids, did not necessarily have a shot at it. So when the SAT came about, somebody like Stanley Kaplan, who was a bright kid, but not from a great family or didn't have a great background and stuff, kids like him could for the first time be on an equal footing, because if you crack the test and get a good score, you have a very, very good chance of getting into the college, right? So he's somebody who benefited from the SAT and he went into the school. So after that, he was very, very passionate about this whole thing because he felt it democratized education and everything. So he started, coaching students or training students for it. Now, why, when I say versus, it means it was a court case. Why did the College Board file a court case against him? Because they felt that what they test is very, very important. It's very, very important. And it's something that cannot be trained for or coached for. So essentially, this person is cheating or fooling people. SAT is a very, very untrainable test. It tests natural skill or natural talent. So this person is actually cheating people. So Stanley Kaplan felt otherwise, no, there are skills we can help people to improve them. So the colleges obviously got together and banned him from doing any sort of publicity on campus or anything of that sort. But obviously, once there is a coaching center enough and more students will join him. So all he did was he gave all of his old students T-shirts to wear, right, with the Kaplan branding, and all of them used to go to campus wearing that T-shirt and stuff, right? So eventually Stanley Kaplan won. He won the court case and he proved that, yes, this can be done. Those skills can be trained for. It's not something which is natural skill or whatever. Now, the reason I'm telling you the story is it's very, very important for you to understand, because what is the nature of this aptitude test? Now, what is the equation to correctly answer any aptitude question? To put it very, very simply or crudely, some knowledge into application will give you the answer. So the SAT believe that the knowledge level is so low that you require, or rather the knowledge level is everything that everybody will learn in school. It's the application level or application skills that are so important to crack this test, and application skills cannot be imparted. That is the SAT's belief. Stanley Kaplan also believed the same, that he is not like he believed that it is knowledge, not about application, but he believed that these application skills could be imparted. But this is the crux of it, that it's not about knowledge, but that it's about application, it's about skills more than anything else. Right? So, what is the difference between a skill and knowledge? A skill is something that cannot be gained through knowledge, but can only be acquired through practice over a period of time. So, for example, how many cricket fans people watch cricket? Maybe you can, yeah, quite a few. Yeah. Now we know that as watchers of the game, we know that all of us who watch the game know exactly know the definitions of various things. We know what an outswinger is, we know what an in-swinger is, we know what a wobble ball is, we know what back foot play is, front foot play is. We know almost enough and more about the technicalities of the game. Does that mean that you can go out there and actually bowl that ball exactly the way it's required? You have knowledge. It doesn't mean that you can do it, right? The example that I like to give people a lot is about learning to drive a bike or learning to drive a car. It's actually very easy on the face of it, right? Learning to drive a bike or a car. How many of you have tried to learn driving a car? Okay. A bike? Yeah. So you know that the knowledge required is very basic, right? Start it, put it into first gear. I'm talking about a geared bike, not an automatic bike, right? Put it into first gear, gently release the first gear, accelerate it, and depending upon the speed, either go up or go down. So even if you went to a driving school, you know that what that guy has to tell you is over basically in not even say 15 minutes, it's over, right? But between that knowledge and becoming an expert driver who can drive in all sorts of conditions, traffic, rain, this, that, how many hours of driving is required? Quite a bit of driving, right? Enough and more driving is required. So that is what a skill is. A skill is not something where just having some knowledge would immediately lead you to execute something. So why do I say that a CAT is a test of skills and not knowledge? Because 66% or two-thirds roughly of the tests are skill-based, because one-third are from VA and RC. Now think about reading comprehension. All of you are taking this test because technically you can read English, right? And at whatever level you can understand it. Now, if I give you a reading comprehension passage and 4 questions, you need no specific knowledge. Nothing stops you from taking a shot at it. Okay, I read something, I understood something. Yeah, and between these two, this would be the answer, right? Maybe this is the answer. Whether you get it right or wrong is a separate thing. But suppose there is a geometry problem, right? Around, say, the what you call the in radius or circumradius or anything of that sort. Until you know that specific formula, or even say a numbers problem around the number of factors, of a number, unless you have knowledge, you cannot actually do anything in a math problem, right? But on a verbal ability section, nothing stops you from marking an answer after some time of reading and some time of attempting. Now, that is why one of the verbal ability is a skill-based exam, because it's knowledge, not a knowledge-based thing. Same thing for DI, data interpretation, logical reasoning. Right? So the standard puzzles like, okay, there are 4 professors and 4 rooms. This person always teaches after that person. There is no course that you can do for you to, in terms of say that prerequisite for you to take a shot. Through preparing for IMS, we'll help you solve along with us. We'll solve quite a few problems and you'll see how we approach it, right? But there is not like a school course in logical reasoning, or nothing, or rather nothing stops you from attempting it or taking your own shot at it, right? So math, the course will help you in terms of say giving you enough and more exams, or so it's not that the course won't help you. Nothing stops you from attempting. Nothing stops you from thinking about it. So 4 out of 9 areas are skill based. So two-thirds of the test is skill based. So if I divide the test into areas, you have VA, RC, DI, and LR, and you have numbers, arithmetic, algebra, geometry, and modern math, right? So most of all the math ones are essentially what you call primarily knowledge based, and the rest of the test is skill based. So what you need to know in your head is that you need to move from blindly thinking of this as a knowledge gaining exercise over the next, what you call next 9 months, and to consciously developing skills. If that change you don't make in your head, there will be you will see that that's one of big reasons why people end up taking the test multiple times, is most of the time it's the orientation in terms of the preparation itself is wrong. Only after they take it for the first time do they realize, oh, I was wrong all along in the way I went through the whole thing. Yeah. So another big thing, that your marks in your school and college have no correlation with your ability to crack a 99, or not just 99, a good percentile. It can be even a 95. Why do I say this? Your school exams have completely been about memory. Right? You mug up stuff and you regurgitate stuff, and the tuition teacher makes you do the 10 questions over and over and again. Right? So that is only a reflection of your commitment and your competitiveness. But your actual ability to crack the test, there is absolutely no link. And you can take this from me in writing, because it's a completely separate test. We will prepare together. We will learn different things, but you're not going to get the same problem in the exam. It's not going to be the same problem with just numbers changed, right? So it is very much like a sport. You will train with your coach, you will play enough and more matches, you'll practice in the nets, but the ball you will face will always be new, right? So that is how you need to look at it. So your entire thing in school and college, I want you to look at it in both ways. If you're good, if you have great marks, doesn't matter. If you're poor in school and college also, doesn't matter. Both of them have no bearing. This has to be a fresh start. So what I'll be looking at over the course is two sets of skills. It's not just to crack the CAT, but also crack an MBA. So we're talking about two stages. The first stage is the scoring, is the test stage, which is just the CAT, and after that you have the group discussion and the interview stage. So we'll also be covering about the skills required for that, because those are also skills and you cannot develop them overnight. Now, skill one, reading speed. Whether you're good at math, bad at math, good at DI, bad at DI, which is your strong area, weak area, it doesn't matter. Reading speed is something that is applicable across the whole test. Your reading speed, if you ask me, can make or break your IIM dream. You want to get into an IIM, but this reading speed itself can be a make or break. Why do I say so? Because to crack the CAT, you have to literally climb a mountain of words. On average, the CAT has about 6,000 words of reading to be done in total. That's a huge amount of reading. If I add all the reading comprehension questions, the DILR questions, the quant questions, everything together, you have 6,000 words of reading to be done. Now, suppose you have an effective reading speed of 100 words per minute. What do I mean by effective reading speed? It's nothing but, one is you can just read blindly and not recollect anything. Effective reading speed is you read a quant problem, right? And you understood that, you can quickly say that, yeah, this is what the problem is and this is what they're saying. You read an RC passage, broadly you can remember what this passage is about, right? So, and answer a few questions. So effective reading speed means reading with comprehension. At 100 words per minute, you would need an hour just to read, right? So you would need 1 hour just to read the whole thing, not solve. Right? The moment you increase this, say above to 200 words per minute, automatically you have 30 seconds more per question at least to solve the, right? So faster reading speed means that you have greater solving time, and between a good attempt and a poor attempt, if you have 30 seconds more per question, that itself can be many more questions done correctly. So this itself can be the biggest roadblock, because people spend a lot of time on all the other skills, and during the exam, close to the exam, say, "Mere attempts nahi badh rahe, mere attempts nahi badh rahe," right? So that attempts after a point can get hobbled because of this. So it is nothing to do with, say, only verbal. It has to do with raw reading speed across this thing. DILR sets are also long sets of description. Right? Not just the CAT. If you take the other exam like the ZAT and stuff, that is even more, an even greater amount of reading. So how do you increase your reading speed? So this has to be a goal that you're working towards. It's a clear skill that you're working towards, right? So solve 3 passages every day for 30, 60, or 90 days, depending upon your level. Right now, each of you has a different level. But why do I say every day for 30, 60, or 90 days, depending upon your level? Now, if you, those of you who learn to drive a car, suppose you're doing this learning, and you're doing, you know that you need to drive regularly to figure out, and you're just doing the driving once a week. The first class is, you took today, and after that, just once a week you're driving. You'll take that much more time, and will you ever become an expert? I doubt. Right? But if you drive every day for 30 days flat, you know that your skill level will improve, because the brain is also like a muscle, that when muscle, so all muscles, for a muscle to grow, you need to put it under some amount of stress, right? So if you're just doing a light this thing once a week and everything else, nothing is going to happen. So depending upon your level, each of you would know. So do you need to get into measuring reading speed? You can measure reading speed. So all you need to do is take a reading comprehension passage and say, look at the time that is required, or there are enough and more online. If you go and say, how to measure reading speed, you'll get enough and more tools to do that, right? So don't worry about say how to do that. You can just go online and say measure reading speed, you'll get that, right? So 30, 60 or 90 days, every single day, 3 passages a day. Where can you practice from? There is the learn module of IMS from where you can practice. If you're already through with that, you can easily get the GMAT official guide or GMAT official review, the very verbal review. I don't need to tell you how to find something online, right? Officially, I don't want to use the words, but you know that you can, find free stuff online. You don't need to buy stuff. You can definitely find PDFs, right? If it's not, you can look at the ETS GRE book. Any one of these, should be fine. So please understand that this will be a painful exercise. It's not going to be easy. So back in the day, I remember a few, from 2012 to 2016, I was based out of Chennai. I was running the IMS Chennai business. So I had a lot of North Indian students also there. So they would always like to come meet me and have a chat with me, because they're like, sir, यहाँ तो मतलब रोटी भी नहीं मिलती, आपसे तो बात होती है तो हिंदी तो बात कर सकते हैं. So they would come and regularly to have a chat. So there's one student, he came to me and said, sir, reading speed and English is absolutely horrible. Bataiye kya kare? So I told him exactly this. After 1 week, he came back and he said, "Sir, literally dukta hai, sir." He's like, my brain when I'm doing this feels like it's going to burst. It's like pure torture. And what I told him was this: only, it will hurt. It will really hurt. It will seem horrible. Right? But there is no other option. Do you think I'll be doing this if there is some other shortcut? If I can give you some injection, or if I can give you some tablet and automatically say reading speed improves, I definitely do that. Why to put you, and why should everybody go through the torture? But unfortunately, there is no other way. Now, he stuck to it. There were two people who came. He's the only one who stuck to it, he and his good friend. And he actually cracked an MIMS that year, right? Because I told him there is no other, way out. So this is the way out. And whenever you decide to start and go day in, day out, right? So why am I saying this and not editorials? You'll have enough and more of your teachers who'll say that, yeah, most of them, all of them, my colleagues only, or maybe, online, editorial padho, newspaper padho, novel padho. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but do that over and above this. Why this should be priority? Because just reading without answering questions will not actually be simulating what the test is about, right? You also need to test your comprehension. Right? When you're reading a newspaper article, there are no questions around that. Right? So even if you don't take your accuracy way too much to heart right at the beginning, when you're reading a newspaper article, there is no way for so those of you have classes right now, have a class and all, you guys can go ahead. But the recording will be available. It will be put up on the YouTube channel as well, as well as on my IMS. So when you're reading a newspaper article or when you're reading a novel, there are no questions about the same, right? So there is no way for you to figure out, are you getting better, are you reading faster, or whatever, right? So when you're doing this reading, feel free to actually check for the meanings of words that you don't know, right? Don't do it like a practicing RC as much as reading and answering your questions. I'm trying to improve my comprehension and reading speed. So don't bother, don't worry. So after you read something, definitely look at what the meanings are of the words that you do not know. Right? The editorials and novels and everything else are things that can help. Now, if you have enough and more time, right, then do this. That is what I would say, reading editorials. But reading editorials has a completely different goal altogether. What about reading novels and stuff? Now, how to put it? Those, most students maybe absolutely hate reading. Right? So जैसे बचपन में अगर दवाई देना है for kids, if I might use a bit of Hindi in the middle. I can use Telugu as well, Tamil as well, Malayalam as well. So I can use all languages because bulk of the students are, would be. So I'll be maybe saying a few things in Hindi. So when you're young, if you need to be given a medicine, what would your parents do? They will grind the tablet out and put some sugar in and give it to you, right? So with sugar, you are likely to consume it, right? So because people don't like to read regular stuff right up, so hence the what you call the instructors say, now start a reading habit and start off with reading novels and everything. All of that is fine, but I think that makes a lot of sense if we were 18 months away from the exam. So this was last year June, then definitely the first 6 months of your prep, you could have arams taken all the time in the world to read novels and this and that. The first SimCat is going to start in 2 months, which is April, roughly in April. Around April 15th, exactly, you'll have roughly a first SimCat, right? So I would say do the novel reading and stuff if you want to, what you call, if you have enough and more time, but otherwise there is no option, right? You have to do this. That's the first skill, reading speed. The second thing is reasoning speed. So, what do I mean by reasoning speed? So, you need to develop fast twitch reasoning muscles. Okay? So, when you are taking a college exam, whatever you've taken, 50% of you have never prepared for an aptitude test. You know that you have a 2 hour period. The time is never a constraint. Its time is never a huge constraint, right? So people who have marked up everything keep writing pages and pages, and even if don't know stuff, you still sit and write pages, especially I think if you need to write or whatever. Yeah. So, and if it's online, you type. So that is one kind of thinking. Whereas in an aptitude test like the CAT or GMAT or SAT or any other exam, you need your brain to react very quickly in a short span of time. You have only 2 seconds, right? Now this is again something which cannot be developed overnight. Not this, not this, not this. So A cannot be here, B cannot be here. So this person has to be C. If this person is from C, then definitely D has to be from Ahmedabad. So that has to happen in a very small time. So how do you develop these fast twitch reasoning skills? So there are different kinds of reasoning skills. You need to develop three kinds of reasoning skills: so verbal, analytical, and mathematical. Because you need to be developing your verbal skills also, where English, it's not just English, where language in terms of logical constructs. That is one. Analytical is nothing but pure logical reasoning skills. And third one is reasoning in a mathematical context, right? When I said it is skills, it's just that it's not a knowledge with a number change. So you need to develop these three skills. So how do you actually develop these three skills? So for your analytical skills, I would say simple this thing. Again, solve 3 LR sets every day for 30 days from IMS, right? So what do I mean by, from IMS? So you have logical reasoning, section, you have enough and more practice there. So take 3 sets there and solve that for every day. Now how should you phase out your prep and everything? We'll do it in a Q&A. And I also have a slide on how to phase that out. So as of now, just know that you need to do this. For LR, you need to do this. Right? For verbal reasoning skills, right? So verbal reasoning are a very, very specific kind of logic. And one very, very good source for developing your verbal reasoning skills is to solve CR sets from GMAT official guide and GMAT verbal review. Right? So altogether, they'll have about 150 questions in GMAT official guide. So 150 questions is not very huge, right? Even if you solve 10 questions a day, you can finish it off in 2 weeks, right? As I said, you can easily find a PDF online. So that will take care of your verbal reasoning skills. 3 LR sets a day will take care of your logical reasoning skills. And for your mathematical reasoning skill, for your analytical reasoning skills, this is another thing that you should do. Right? So when I said 3 LR, I meant 3 DILR sets. You'll be doing some DI as well in that. So again, a simple thing for you to do. Let me see if I can so I'll share a link in the chat at the end of this particular session, and from there you can go and you can ensure how to download this ETS GRE Big Book. ETS GRE Big Book is a very, very good old book. It's not even, I think, available for sale right now. It is available for print. So back in the day when I was a college student, GRE used to have 3 sections with one analytical reasoning section. So all the kind of puzzles that you're seeing here, GRE had the one section with exactly those kind of puzzles. They removed it much later to make the test shorter. So this has 54, 27 tests with 2 reasoning sections per test. So I'll share the link at the end of it. You can do that. Even if you don't do the ETS GRE book, it is fine. You just do the 3 LR sets every day from the IMS book and this book, right? Why am I suggesting outside thing rather than inside? The thing is that these are all core skills that some of different people are at different levels, right? So you might run out of material after a point of time in terms of solving, no matter how much we give. Most people don't solve, right? Most people then amount people don't even solve 10% of our material, that way. But people always have this thing, I need to get more material. So where do I get more material from before if I finish? That's why I've said these particular sources. Right? And other thing that you should be doing, even if you not don't do, for me, reasoning is doing a Sudoku puzzle every day, because a Sudoku puzzle is exactly like the skills everybody knows. I think by now you do know that the toughest section in the CAT for most people in the last 10 years, say, yeah, at least since 2016, 6 years, has been DILR, because the math is not at that tough a level. The verbal is at a toughest level, but you can still prepare for it. But logical reasoning section has been the toughest, section of late. But that's what people are finding most tough, right? Without a doubt. So, and Sudoku exactly tests the same kind of skill. So, you have to fill numbers, this number, this number, this number, not this, you have to do this, not this, you have to do this. So, if you ask me the exact kind of what you call, it's like training yourself for exactly the kind of sport that LR. If we look at logical reasoning as a sport, right, then Sudoku is exactly the kind of gym training that you would do for that particular sport. Right? So even today, if I need to check, say, I've not slept properly, or, so I'm tired, or whatever it is, I've not been practicing or doing anything related to test. If I need to test how sharp I am at this point to take a test, all I will do is download a Sudoku. I don't need to download it already. I have a free Sudoku app. I take the Sudoku app and solve and see how much time do I take to solve a Sudoku set. If I can solve a medium set anywhere close to, say, 4 minutes or under 4 minutes, I know that I'm in very, very good shape. Right. So I know that, yeah, I'm very much in test taking, fatigue, so to say. Right. So this is absolutely important. Those of you who have not, are not used to doing Sudoku and everything, so you can find any app, so just type, classic Sudoku app on Play Store and stuff, and you should be able to get it. So free, this thing. So don't start with the hard things. So always start with easy. Do a lot of practice of medium, right? Because what a lot of people think is that your ability to solve the hard one is what is required. Actually, no. Even in the exam, it's not about your ability to solve the really hard one. The really hard one you leave. But how fast can you solve the moderate and moderate to tough one? That is what will determine your success on the exam, right? So solve a few easy, just to, if those of you who have no idea of Sudoku, solve a few easy ones just to get a hang of things, but then quickly move on to medium and just keep solving a moderate. Don't even bother with, do a hard very, very rarely, occasionally, just to see, or to maybe, once in a while, say once a week or something, you can do a hard one, but otherwise, moderate puzzles should do. Right? So this is exactly that fast twitch muscle that I'm talking about. 5 minutes, you have to go ahead and do that. Yeah. So we've covered 2 skills now. We know that it's reading speed and it's reasoning speed. Yeah. Yeah, Shubham, if you can solve a Sudoku hard level around 5 minutes, that is very, very good. So, if you're more or less, apps ka level is, fairly this thing. So that means that you have very, very good reasoning skills. So, now, third one is calculation speed. The IIMs and the CAT organizing body, they give you a calculator, right? They absolutely give you a calculator. But the fact is that your brain is faster than your hand. By the time you take that mouse, right? So you cannot use the keyboard. Ashwini, yes, you can solve 2 LR sets every day due to time constraint. Absolutely not a problem. Yeah. So we'll do a Q&A. I'll give a small time for a Q&A after the first 4 skills. Right? So they give you a calculator and you think, calculator hai to mast hai. But what will happen is, by the time and it's not a keyboard, you take the mouse, click the calculator, And all of these labs are not necessarily state of the art labs where the mouse will exactly move. By the time you take the mouse to each number and click multiply and click equal to, there have been, it'll basically survey ho jayega by that time. There is not enough time, for you, to keep doing that. So for me, that is absolutely suboptimal, right? There have been cases of the calculator not working properly and students messing up their entire test. Anyway, I don't think you should be hiding behind a calculator. Right? Now, what is the most important thing in T20, right? The most important thing in T20 is how far can you hit the ball. And the difference between CAT and the rest of and whatever you've done so far is CAT is like a T20 exam, right? So you know that there's a huge power and confidence that comes from the fact that if I hit it, even if I half hit it, it should go out of the stadium, right? Or it will definitely clear the fence. Right? So all of the West Indian players, right, or somebody like a Kiran Pollard or a Andre Russell and all of these guys, they know that even if they, as much as half hit it properly, it will go for a six, right? So that is the kind of skill that, you need as far as calculation skill for doing this. Right? And the reason that is important is that this is the most important and relevant skill for an MBA, both during and after the course, right? So in a business meeting, right, if I say during and after the course, even in an MBA, you have to do a lot of calculations in the math portion as well as in those who take film courses. So there is enough and more math in this thing there. But especially after the course, say when I'm sitting with my top management and we're discussing stuff and we're talking about numbers and stuff, do you think anybody is going to take out and say, "Acha, is mahine ka se, पिछले महीने से अच्छा कितना hai?" And people are actually taking out and calculating percentage change on the calculator? Not a single person in the top management sits, and it's literally like saying that I'm the most useless MBA in the room. So, or not even MBA, I'm not supposed to be here. Because if you cannot do these fast calculations of percentage increase, percentage dhanda kitna bada hai, that it's a 40% hua, I still have 60% of my target left. If you are not able to do this, it is like a core skill that is required. So that is something that you should, whether, and this does not, so if you might ask, sir, what about marketing? Even in marketing, sir, what about HR? Now, if somebody says that straight away, "Acha, what's your current salary at?" And then they're saying that, "Okay, I'm at 18." And then they say that, "Yeah, can I get up?" No, I'm looking at 24. So if you're not able to do that calculation very fast, right, as that the person is asking for a 33% raise, and your percent raise is 20, this thing, or you can give only 20%, and you start taking out calculators and doing that, you can't do that. So even in HR, in every single field, your calculation skills have to be very, very good. For the exam, one of the big things that people do not take into account is the time taken to do micro calculations. There are big calculations, maybe, or slightly complex ones, and there are also small calculations. All of this adds towards the time taken to solve a question. Most of the time, I see that between me and a student, maybe at the end of 1 minute, both of us have figured out how to solve the question, a math problem. But in the next 30 seconds, I will finish the problem. That person is still solving it because the calculation skills are very, very slow. So, and when you are at the end of the QA session, imagine, so it's a 2-hour exam, and maybe once the pandemic is over, they'll go back to a 3-hour exam as well. We don't know. Right? So, right towards the end, the last 20 minutes of this thing, they're like the slog overs of a T20 match. And if you actually know that you can calculate fast, that's like a huge strength for you, right? But if your calculation skills are very, very slow, imagine last 20 minutes and you're still sitting and doing that calculation. I think that is where most people lose the exam, or lose that extra. So all of these are small margins, right? So if you calculate fast and you can do 3 questions more, that's close to 10 marks more. 3 questions, 10 marks can be the difference between a call and this thing. And suppose you've solved 10 questions, right? Even if you say, or so you've solved 15 questions or 12 questions, even if you save half a minute per question, that is 6 minutes saved. And in 6 minutes, you solve 2 more questions, for example. That is 6 marks, and that can be the difference between you clearing the cutoff and not clearing the cutoff. Right? So, which is why I keep calling, saying that it's a T20 situation and not a college exam situation. Okay? So, calculation skills are to aptitude test to an aptitude test taker what fitness is to a sportsman, right? Some of these West Indian bowlers that I'm looking at, they don't seem, they don't seem fit at all. So obviously they're getting beaten black and blue as well. So you keep that aside. But exactly for a sportsman what fitness is, calculation skills are that, in terms of for an aptitude test. So that's the importance that I give to it, or that it has. It's not that something that I give. Right? So again, you can solve DI sets, right? So LR sets are there on Learn module of IMS, but you can also solve DI sets, from the Learn module of IMS. That is something that will, help you. But more importantly than this, while this solving these three sets is there, when the first day I went for my CAT prep, my mentor gave me a list of things to say that you should absolutely mug this up and know this. And I did that right. And then the first week itself, I finished that. Right? So what are these things? And I just followed what he said and I just mugged it up. What are those things? From looking at tables 20 into 20. You might think, sir, tables 20 into 20. Yes, there is absolutely nothing you can do. At least say 20 into 15. So you don't need to do, say, 15, 17s are, 15, 18s are, but at least till 15 into 15, you should know. So forget 20 to 20. Bare minimum is 15 to 15. If you can do 20 into 20, there's nothing like it. Right? Next thing, squares of all numbers from 2 to 30. So 2 square, 3 square, 4 square until 30. Next thing, cubes of all numbers. Right? So, the reason I'm saying this is why you need to know this. It can be a small thing, for example, that you need to do in the middle of an exam, and it's only going to be this particular skill that's going to. For example, somewhere you need to do 25 to 26. If you know 25 squares is 625, that says one more 25. That's 625 plus 25. That's 650. Right. So these are small things that are there that you need to know for you to be able to do this. Right. So cubes of all numbers from 2 to 12, powers of 2, right? So squares of all numbers from 2 to 30, so 2 square, 3 square, cubes of all numbers, 2 cube, 3 cube, 4 cube till 12. Power, so if you want, at the end of this slide, you can take a screenshot. Powers of 2 from 1 to 12, 2 power 1, 2 power 2, 2 cube, 2 power 4, 2 power 5 from 1 to 12. Powers of 3 from 1 to 6, 5 from 1 to 5, 6 from 1 to 4, 7, 8, 9 from 1 to 3. Correct. So this again, I mentioned at the previous slide, solving 3 DI sets every day from the Learn module. Right? But before you do that, you have to do this. Now, there is an important reason for it. Right? People with WorkX in the audience, yeah, there are people with WorkX, right? So people with WorkX, the reason you want to do an MBA is you don't want to be a techie, you want to get into management, you want to do strategy jobs and everything. Those who don't want to do those who don't want to do their engineering or commerce this thing and want to do an MBA, all of you want higher quality jobs, right? So that wanting to do that strategy job, wanting to do that great job means that you don't want to spend your time doing shitty work. Right? Now think about the 2 hours of an exam and you do not know what 2 power 7 is. So within the exam you're sitting, 2 power 4 is 16 and then you're calculating 4 is 16, so 5 is 32 and 6 is 64 and then 7 is 128. So you are exactly doing shitty work in the 2 hours of the exam. The exact shit work and bad work that you want to escape and do great work, that has to happen right from this thing. So essentially, what do I mean? All of these should be pre-fed in the system, that because questions will require you to know suddenly you'll say the answer is a 2 parts this thing, right? You need to get that stuff. And it will be a theta question where you type in the answer and not 2 power, but the actual this thing. Or it can be 3 cube or whatever it is, right? All of these should be fed into your system so that when you're actually there in the exam, you're only doing the good work of solving, and all of these other things, if you're sitting and doing there in the exam, that means you're again doing the wrong thing. Right? So it's like going into the have you guys have you guys seen Matrix? I mean, in the first part of Matrix, or yeah. So you get the first part of Matrix. What does what you call Mr. Anderson, or not Mr. Anderson actually? Boy, I forgot how can I forget Keanu Reeves' name in that? What's Keanu Reeves' name in Matrix? How did? Neo, yeah. So Neo, but there is another, his original name I forgot, right? So what does the character do right at the end, before the big climax fight or whatever? He says, I need guns. I need lots of guns, right? So what that whole I need guns, lots of guns, all of these are your guns, right? When you're going into an exam. That means that you can uda all of these small calculations and everything, very, very soon. Right? So that is, how. And it's all of this is a very different mindset in case you haven't prepared for a test and this stuff. So this is the stuff that you would need to do. So pure calculation muscle. I know that I take great confidence in the fact that I can go in, and if required in the last this thing, I can really calculate stuff fast. Yeah. So you have this skill number 4, after which we'll do a small Q&A, is solving efficiency. Right? Now, these, if you see, I've not spoken about by all of these are skills, because all of these skills are this is required. Beyond knowing math, you need all of this. Knowing concepts is just a very small portion of the whole thing that you'll anyway know. But application and solving skills, these are the things. That's why I've not mentioned that. So the cleaner the worksheet, the faster you are, right? This is something that you would need to know. So, for example, when I was preparing for my this thing, so it was a paper-based test, and I would be taking a mock and stuff. So after the mock, I would see that my paper rough sheet was completely full of solving. There would not be even 1 square centimeter there on the sheet which would be empty. So after one of the mocks is coming out, and I look for some reason, I look at he's from a different college, the different department of my same college, and I was not he's not my friend. So he was sitting there, and I saw how he was solving. He would just sit, read the question, look up, maybe think, write 1 or 2 small things, go back to read, and then look up, write 1 or 2 small things, and mark the answer. So he was thinking and then writing some stuff, and then writing only when it was required. But if you were, whereas the way I was solving, the moment I'm reading the question, and as I'm reading the question, I'm starting to write on my paper, right? Immediately, I've not even waited for it. Right? So if you ask me, writing, that entire portion of writing is something that you do not realize that you're wasting a lot of time. A lot of time will go to that. So the cleaner your worksheet, it means the cleaner your thought process and the faster you are. So a few things with respect to this thing: do not learn solutions, learn how to solve questions. Don't mug up that. So how to solve a question, I realized that throughout. So when I mean how to solve a question, this is primarily with respect to quant. Even for DILR, for that matter, it will be helpful. For RC and all, not really. Right? But how to solve a question throughout our whole life, throughout school, all our teachers have only taught us one thing. They've only taught us solutions. Nobody taught us how to solve a question. Right? They never taught what are the basics of solving. So how to solve means that irrespective of what the question is, these are 4 things that you should always do. So first thing is, read the question or content only once. Avoid passive reading. I've already told you that reading itself takes a lot of time. So if you first read it, what is passive reading? You read a quant question first, nothing goes in, because you've just read it like that. And then you have to read it again. Right? So those of you who have the habit of passive reading, you have to make sure that even if you read slowly, you will still save more time by spending 1.5 minutes by dropping your pace and reading with concentration than taking 1 minute and reading it twice. Right? So please ensure that you're reading the content only once and avoid passive reading. That itself is a huge time sink for most students. They're not even conscious that they're doing it. Right? Start solving a question only after you reach the end of the question. What do all of us do? X can do a piece of work in 20 days, immediately, 20. Right? X can do a piece of work in 20 days, immediately. One day he will do 1 by 20. That is basic information which is already given. Right? The first thing we do is, whatever information that is already there in the screen, you are straight away transferring that into your paper. Is this writing, is that writing related to in any way? Are you taking even one step further? Do you know what to do? You don't know what to do. But so 20 days it takes to do a piece of work means one day he will do 1 by 20. You also know that. I also know that. What are you doing by writing? You're not doing anything, by writing. So starts, and there's another reason for this. All the quant questions, or most of the quant questions, they do not give you information in sequence. They give you some important piece of information, or they give you information not in a linear manner, that first itself you know this, then you know this, and you keep adding, and finally as you are solving you'll get the answer. That does not happen that way. Sometimes or most of the time, the information is given in a non-linear fashion, right? An important piece of information, yeah, an X is half as good as Y, they might give you that right at the end, right? So it is like somebody has come to you, you're a doctor and a patient has come to you. The patient has not completed telling his or her problem, and you've already started prescribing medicines. Or it's like there is a surgeon who's lying there. It's like, X is half as good as Y means X takes it twice the time as much as Y to do a piece of work. Yeah, that's what I meant. So, yeah. So they're telling that to you right at the end. So what happens is, if you don't reach, what do we do? The first line that you read and the first variable that you encounter, you end up taking that. So it's TSD will be different. Let's not get into the specific max thing. Just understand this principle behind it, that the first variable that you encounter that you do not know that they've not given this value, you will take that as X, because that is the first thing you've encountered in sequence. They're asking for something else in the problem, and you've taken that. What they're asking you to find out is something else, but because this is the first thing you encountered that is not given, you've taken that as X. What will happen? You'll solve that problem, you'll get X, they will ensure that that is also there in the option, you'll mark it. But what you've taken as X is not what they asked for, right? So think of race solving from the first thing straight away. A lot of people do this. It's like there's a patient that you have to operate, you do not know what you need to do. It's like पहले काट देते हैं, खोल के देखते हैं, उसके बाद देखते हैं क्या होता है, right? You won't cut open a patient and then decide what to do, right? So that is, so please, this is that most important thing in terms of, say, most people read twice, solve twice. That is what happens, right? So just ensure that you're only solving a question after you reach the end of the question, you've understood exactly what the question is, then you'll figure, okay, yeah, so this is that, only then start. All of us feel that we're saving time by starting, right? You're saving time by actually, starting, but it's not saving time by starting. You are just doing something randomly, you're just haath pair maar rahe ho, bas, nothing else is happening in that context. Yeah. Write only if you need, if you need support of the paper. There are no marks for steps. Are there any marks for steps? Is it an engineering exam or any other exam where 10 steps you have to show? Is it a school exam where you need to show steps? There are no marks for steps. Somebody asking, it's might sound like a bit of a crude joke or whatever. So somebody, there's a joke that came that, Acha, sir, they asked the math teacher, ki, sir, steps ke marks hai kya? So the math teacher says, math se mujra nahi hai ki steps ke liye marks hai or whatever, right? So as teachers, we keep, sharing these jokes around that. There are no marks for steps. It's not a dance competition for which you get, marks for steps. So there are no marks. You have to directly mark it, right? So only if you need the support of the paper, start writing it, right? So for every single, what you call, suppose you have what do I mean only? Suppose you write an equation. 2x plus 3y plus 7 is equal to this much. 4x plus 2y plus something is equal to this much. Now, at least do that subtraction of that in your head and finally do what x and y is. Now, पहले ये लिखोगे, फिर उसके बाद वो 2x को उधर से लेके, मतलब you'll write that also, then you'll bring the 3y this side and write also. If to start off with, at least if there are 10 steps, right, write 5 steps. I have seen students, they need to calculate the average of 5 numbers and they're writing 35 plus 42 plus this thing, then draw a line under it and then write divided by 5. Right? Do what is required, not what is asked of you, right? Do what you do. Don't write down what you need to find out. Start the finding out. No, plus symbol to likhna band kar do. Ek straight away se likho, neeche line to draw karna band kar do for everything, right? So you don't need to write that. So all I'm trying to get at is that straight away you cannot do things without pen and paper, but at least cut down the number of steps and don't write every single step. अच्छा ठीक है, 2x उधर चला जाएगा तो वो 4x माने वो 2x होगा, यही होगा. Don't write that yet. That's all I'm saying. Right? Only if you need the support of the paper. Consciously use all the tricks in the book, substituting answer options and checking. So we'll do sessions for this. We'll do enough and more sessions about this. We will, even the SimCAT solutions, we will, and the mock-CAT solutions also, we'll do the shortcuts and show all of that. But you should know that substitution, back solving, approximation, these are all very, very core tricks. Acha, something is asking, so what's the value of x? So you can look at it saying, in this particular question, if I put this particular value of x and then see whenever the total is 340, I know whatever that is the right answer. Right? So that is something, yeah. So Deepika, even in case you're making a mistake as of now, it'll just be a matter of time before you get to, if you're doing that equation. Yeah? So why am I saying substitution, back solving, approximation, or whatever? Right? So, and why there's no marks step? I want to give you cricket examples again. Right? Suppose I'm a coach of a T20 team and not a test team, and suppose a student comes to me writing all the steps required to solve a problem. I will just tell him that, will I be like Sunil Gavaskar, who is very, very happy when they see, absolute perfect technique. So I remember looking at, some T20 match or something, some of this thing, and Gavaskar was constantly going on about technique, perfect technique, perfect technique. And I'm like, why are you talking so much about technique in a T20 format? I can understand you talking about that in a test match format, right? Andre Russell does not have the best T20 form, technique, of anyone. Neither, not even say Glenn Max. They play very unorthodox cricket. So what is required for this? It is not exactly required. It's a completely different thing. So if you come to me with all the solutions, all the 20 steps, I won't really say, shabash, what a great job. I'll give you another example. There was a student of mine who was working when I was teaching in Pune. He was working with ZS Associates. It's a good consulting firm. He's from a good college. I think he was from COEP Pune, if I'm not wrong. And he was working with a consulting firm, and it was a second attempt. So he came to me on the second attempt, and he said that, sir, this is my background, and I'm already earning this salary. So unless I make it to the old IIMs or this thing, unless I get so much of a salary, an MBA will not be worth it for me because I'm already making a good salary. So last year I could not get the required percentile and stuff. And he said, I'm always getting stuck at so many questions in math. Only thing I did was I gave him a problem and asked him to solve it. And like the very good boy that he was, he sat and wrote all the steps and he showed me the solution. I'm like, yeah, so that's the problem basically. Why are you stuck at 22 questions? Because you're sitting and writing all the steps for all the problems, right? So understand that's where the steps bit comes in. So in T20, what are the most important shots that are there? That what are the most important shots that people need to play? One is obviously the aerial shot, right, where you're able to straight away clear the rope, right? Straight sixes. But the scoop and the reverse sweep and the ramp shot are very, very important shots. Why are they very, very important shots? Because given the field restrictions, nobody actually places fields behind the batsman straight away. Nobody places fields straight behind the bowler and straight behind the batsman in that small V that is there. So that's a very, very low risk return area in terms of putting a field placement. So hence, any batsman who can play the ramp shot or who can play the scoop or the reverse sweep, they have a huge advantage because nobody's going to place a fielder there, right? So given that is why it is not like it's not like a trick or something else. It is basically something which it's not like a fancy thing or unorthodox technique. I would say that for T20 it is a core skill. If you have batsmen who cannot hit the ball, behind this thing, if your team does not have those skill sets, it's a huge problem in the shorter format. Similarly, in the CAT exam, substitution, back solving, approximation, you see that answers are 20, 40, 70, 80, and 90. 28, 48, 78, 88, 98, or that range. Answers are so far that you don't need to precisely calculate the answer. Even if you can estimate the answer, you'll get it. So just to give an example, I saw a problem, and it was like compound interest of 20% for 5 years. That was the end answer. So I was like, compound interest for 20%, I have to do 1.2 to the power of 5. I saw the answers. Each answer was 10,000 rupees apart. So I was like, no, I am not going to sit and do this 1.2 to the power of 5. 20% simple interest in 5 years means 100%. That means in 5 years, the basic amount has to double. Now, if it is compound interest, it will be definitely more than double. And I saw that there was only one answer more than double, and I marked that. I am not going to sit there and do that 1.2 to the power of 5, or even use the calculator and say 1.2 into 1.2. Right? So even if I need to do 1.2 to the power of 5, if the answers were close, the way I would do it was I would put those 5 numbers, 1.2 into 1.2, 12s are 144, another 12 into 12 is 1.4, 144, 14 square is 196, and then you have into 1.2, so I know that's roughly 2.25. That's how I would solve. So I would know the squares of numbers, so I would divide it into 12 square into 12 square, then 14 square into 14 square on the last one. Right. Anyway, that's if the answers are close. So you'd have to consciously use all tricks in the book. Yeah. So these are the basics of solving a CAT, ZAT, or any other aptitude test question. These are good habits. If you don't develop these good habits, going in closer to the exam, you will think, what am I missing? You keep going back to the topics and revising them over and over again, but your core solving technique itself will be flawed. Yeah. So read the question and content only once, avoid passive reading. Start solving a question only after you reach the end of the question. Don't write all the steps, write only when required, and consciously use all the tricks in the book. Right? So we finished the first, so making time for, everything. Right? So how do you make time for everything? So you need to do, say, 2 to 4 hours of prep time every single day. So I don't think more than this is required. If you have a lot of time, that's but 2 to 4 hours of prep time should be fine. Even if in the initial phases you're putting 1 hour of solid prep time a day, that should be fine. Right? So schedule to solve 6 sets from 2 out of 3 areas every day. Right? So you don't need to solve everything every day. One day, do 3 RCs and 3 DIs. The next day, do 3 DIs and 3 LRs. The next day, do 3 RCs and 3 LRs. So you don't need to do all 3 every day. Bare minimum, do one a day at least. Say RC for 3 sets of RC a day. Then you do same. So at least ensure that you're doing one type at least 2 days consecutively. Right. So RC DI one day, DILR one day, and RCLR one. When I say talk about this every day for how much time, at least for a month, you have to keep doing this. For a month to 45 days, till that muscle is built up, you have to keep doing this. Right? So right now, this is a good time because you're at Feb 15th, and if roughly around that time, and say if April 15th is around that time, will be the first SimCAT. If the next 2 months you can do this, you will see, that the first SimCAT, first SimCAT will be a nightmare for, irrespective of whatever it is, but it will be much better than your friends who've said didn't do any preparation at all. Yeah. So you're spending that and some time on QA, right? So I told you that more than half of the test are skills. And what are the skills? RC, DI, and LR. The rest of the half is knowledge based, which is QA. Right? So equal time between the two. Most test people, because quant, it seems like there are so many concepts to learn, they spend all their time learning, finishing all the quant this thing. But that is just one section, right? So spend 2 hours on quant and say 2 hours on this, and that should be fine, right? Yeah, on D-Day you require to solve only 2 sets from DILR and 3 to 4 sets from RC. Absolutely, you need to solve 3 to 4 sets from either. But the thing with DILR is that it will take that much time for you to improve your speed. So that's the all this thing. So 2 hours on so basically you need to do an hour or two of quant every day, an hour or two of the other skill based sets every day. If you do that consistently, you will see that your skills will be developed in a more even fashion rather than the skills being lopsided. Most people don't look at the test, don't clear the test because their skills are lopsided, either one section out of three or 2 section out of three. But very few people manage to develop all the 3 sections out of three in the first attempt. Yeah, so half the paper will be the target, and everything else we'll do the bit of Q&A. Now, if you have only 2 hours every day, suppose you don't have more than two, so you have only 2 hours every day, then do one day of quant for 2 hours, and then do one the next day. Don't do quant, do say the set based questions, RC, DI, and LR, right? So just ensure that your preparation, all of this just means that your preparation should be even between the set based questions and skill based questions and quant. Skill number 5. Skill number 5 that you really need to develop for the second round are communication skills. Right? So the first round, how many calls do they give out for every seat? For every seat, they give out 4 calls, or at least 4 to 5 calls. So your chances of cracking the CAT, getting a final admit, are only 20%. So even 100 percentilers, I've had my friends who are 100 percentilers, but in their they didn't clear the interview round in the first time. They and an IITN with 100 percentiles didn't clear it in the first time because the communication skills were not good enough to crack the interview. So test is only one part of it, right? Understand over the longer term, managers and leaders are pitching ideas all the time. Every single conversation, you have an idea, you're making a presentation, everything you're doing, you're constantly putting forth your ideas. So it is a very, very important skill set, as not just for a GD perspective or an interview perspective, but you've chosen a career where you are going to spend a lot of time convincing people. Right, your brains are there, yeah, absolutely fine. Nobody's, but you're not going to solve questions during your career, right? Most of the time your job is to actually take people along. You're pitching ideas all the time. So eventually, at some point of time, you need to eventually think in English. No, I'm not saying this is a must. Most Indian companies also have a culture of speaking in Hindi. At IMS, we mix between Hindi and English depending on the people. But yeah, if I need to actually convince somebody, I'm more likely to speak in what you call Hindi than in English, right? Because you speak in somebody's mother tongue, the connection is faster. But still, I still need to make my presentations. I still need to do that communication, right? So that all of that stuff will eventually have to happen in English. Think about this. How did you learn your mother tongue? Did somebody teach you vocab? Did somebody teach you grammar? Especially, did anybody teach you grammar in your mother tongue? No. You learned your mother tongue purely by virtue of being in an environment where your mother tongue was spoken. Well, recently I met somebody, and I asked that, okay, so this person was a third location child. So the father was from state 1, mother was from state 2, and the person was born and raised in state 3. So I asked, so do you speak either your mother's tongue or your father's tongue? So the person is like, no, I don't speak either. I speak the language in the state in which I was raised. I was like, how is then it just struck me that, okay, because the mother is from one state and the father is from the other state, both of them with each other, they don't have a common language. Right? So if they don't have a common language, the kid is not hearing this language. So there is no way that the kid would have developed that. The common language would have been what she heard, and most often it would have been the language in that particular state. Right? So where am I getting at this particular thing with English? So if you do not know English, and if you think that, okay, I'm going to learn grammar now, I'm going to learn vocab, and suddenly I'm going to speak. No, I don't think that knowing that's how you learn to speak. So stop watching anything in Hindi or your mother tongue, be it, or whatever entertainment you consume. Move from your mother tongue to, this one. Right? So all your consumption should be in English till you get to this thing. Why I'm saying stop that? Because you don't have enough time to watch that also and watch English stuff also. Right? So both you don't have time. So because I'm giving you time to watch this or permission, I'm telling that you can't do that. You cannot do that. At least to get you get an admission into a B school, stop all mother tongue watching and watch everything in this thing. Watch TV shows and movies in English with lots of dialogue. So if you watch superhero movies and stuff, so basically there's a lot of action and very little dialogue. So watch TV shows, watch movies in English, and automatically you will pick up enough and more. Right? So how many should you watch? So watch movies in English, both are lots of. So I would say that if you take any movies of Tom Cruise apart from Mission Impossible, you'll find enough and more dialogue in that. Or movies or any Julia Roberts movies, you'll find enough and more dialogue in there. So before superheroes took over, there were movies where there was dialogue. So just watch those movies, right? And you can watch it with subtitles. Absolutely watch it with subtitles. Both will work. You don't need to not watch it with subtitles because sometimes it's not clear, right? But eventually you'll see that, yeah. So if you can watch it without subtitles and understand with headphones, that should be the best, this thing. But even with subtitles, it's absolutely fine. Right? So, but keep watching it because you also learn pronunciation. All of those things will take taken care of. So as I said, a good thing would be to watch, but the only thing is that we are used to such fast-paced action that all of these movies might seem super slow now, because the average length of an edit is so short right now that you don't have long scenes anymore, right? Yeah, but I would say that, yeah, watch any of say movies of, say, Tom Cruise or George Clooney or Julia Roberts or any of these people, rather than most of the action stuff, because there's very little there, right? So this is the second thing. Third thing, just small habits, right? Be aware of your capitalization, punctuation, spelling, and grammar in your official and personal communication, right? So one of the things I've seen is that whenever student have to students write, or even Tom Hanks movies for that matter. Somebody is saying Tom Hanks. So basic things. If you're starting a sentence, even in a WhatsApp message, write that first sentence with the first letter with a capital W. Right? If you're saying how are you, start with writing in it. So these are small things where you're making an effort to slightly get better at English. Punctuation, even if you do not do it, is fine, right? But at least do the basics, like putting a question mark at the end if you're asking a question, right? Not just when you're angry. Ensure that you're spelling these words properly, and you're this thing, because some of the times when it, and this is nothing to do with in regular, it's just that when I say get a what you call a comment on my blog which say H is small, then hello is small, SIR is capital, hello is written in small. I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, it just feels very, very weird that you're aspiring to a professional course very, very soon, right? You're aspiring to a professional course very, very soon. So just be aware of these small things. It's like polishing different aspects. It cannot be that, yeah, I want to really improve my English and think in English and all of that, but whenever I'm typing, I'm doing it without any this thing. So just do that small thing so that it will help, right? So stop watching anything in your mother tongue. Watch TV shows and movies in English, with lots of dialogue when you need to unwind, and just be aware of just typing out clear messages. Yeah. Skill number 6, general awareness. So what you need to understand is that an MBA exists in the world, and it's not in a department, right? So in a techie world, what happens is that what you need to do is a lot of it's a closed thing. R&D is a very closed thing where you're sitting and doing research and development and everything. But an MBA is something completely different, right? Are you guys aware of cult fitness? Yeah. So most people know cult fitness, right? It's a new age or fitness chain and everything. So cult fit is a huge new age chain of fitness centers and gyms where they teach you different kinds of workouts and CrossFit and yoga and this and that and everything. The interesting thing is, who started cult fitness? Any idea? Anyway, I know you guys can Google it. So Mukesh Bansal, who founded Myntra, he is the guy who invested, and initially, I don't know right now how involved he is, but he's the one who got interested and invested into cult fitness right at the beginning. So he exited the fashion business when Flipkart bought over Myntra. He exited that business, and with that money, what he got into was fitness. Right? So how did he know? So obviously, he's very, very aware of the world around him to actually figure out that fitness is something that people are looking at. Right? So there are people who are early investors who have on Shark Tank. What you're seeing on, say, Shark Tank Hindi, you guys people have watched. You guys have seen Shark Tank Hindi, yeah. So all those ideas there are possibly the most ghati ideas that we are seeing, and we'll see maybe 2 more seasons of bakwas ideas before we see the real shit. Because in the real shit, you have actually Indian firms that are doing very, very well in crypto. Right. There are firms that have made a killing in the crypto space and the blockchain space and stuff. Right. So they are kids who are very, very aware of what's happening around them and doing it. So what I mean to say is that an MBA exists in the world and looking at opportunities that are there in the world, trends that are there in the world, and that is very, very important. So because a B school knows this, they make it a point to test your general awareness. Some exams do it some exams either do it, what you call some colleges do it either as part of the exam, or they do it as part of the interview process, right? So now the most important thing, what they look at, almost all interviews currently in the second stage in the VAT interview, almost all interviews are having a GK and a current, not a GK, a current affairs component, where they're asking students questions from current affairs. Why are they looking at this? So GK and current affairs have become an indispensable part of all interviews, because they want to see that they will be putting you in group discussions and other activities for placements, right? They want to see when this kid goes in, or when this young person goes in front of an interview panel of a firm, is he or she placeable? Is he or she aware of the world around them? And are they placeable? Are they going to be good graduates? So the test is to ascertain, are you going to be a good student? Can you survive an MBA? Because an MBA is also a very academic course. The CAT as an exam is here to test that. Can you survive an MBA? The GDPI process, that's a CAT test. Are you a good student? Will you be a good student in an MBA? The GDPI process is here to test, will you be a good MBA graduate? That is what the GDPI wants to test. Can you go out and become a manager, become a leader? How will you function in placements? How do you come across? Right? So GK has become an indispensable part. The panel wants to test if you are placeable, because who is, so that's the core goal. So take up reading one magazine or newspaper every day to be ready by February after CAT. Now, why am I saying this? Your CAT will get over in November. The GDPI results of calls will come out in Jan 15th, roughly around that time. Your first interview can be as early as the first week of February. Are those 3 weeks going to be enough for you to be aware of everything that has happened in the last 1 year? Absolutely not. And people absolutely freak out trying to read current affairs of the last 1 year and mugging it up. And the more you try to mug up, the more nervous you are. Right? So there is barely one of the things that, say, for me, interviews have always been very easy, both on campus as well as everything else, because I think it was a blessing in disguise. And even say for reading speed, it was a blessing in disguise that my mother used to work in a government organization called Hindustan Shipyard in Visakhapatnam. So she was part of the library, and so every alternate day they would get, from the library, she would get a magazine. This would be Newsweek or Time, or not Newsweek or Time, sorry, India Today, Frontline, Hindu, or some Sunday, all sorts of magazines, one magazine every alternate day. So in the evenings after, once it was dark, there was no other thing to do but to read those things. And I was reading them from close to sixth standard. Yeah, some close sixth standard, I started reading them, and it went all along this thing. So when somebody asked me, I think one of my fellow trainees at the Aditya Birla Group, he was also from a small town. I think he was from Patiala, if I'm not wrong. So he asked me during the training this thing, Tony, you're also from a small town. Didn't you ever feel that when you go to an IIM at Lucknow and everything, that you will be at a disadvantage from, compared to people from big cities and everything? So what I said, was that, see, I had fewer opportunities to do stuff in terms of extracurriculars and this and that. So, not too many activities in the college. College is not a national level college. College fest, this, that, all of that didn't happen. But I didn't think there was anything a big city kid knew that I did not know about the world, because I was reading these magazines every single day from sixth standard. I was like, shit, I would know, I can run circles around everybody else there. So I never had any issues that, okay, I didn't know anything, because the magazines would cover everything. So even the fashion magazines, would my mother would get, there was odd women's fashion / this magazine called Femina. I would read that also, so that was how much I was into reading. So obviously I would be more aware of everything else than anybody. So that was the thing that really held me in very good state. It's not every day this thing. So Vineet, you don't need to, Anubhav, you don't need to make notes on GK. You don't, if you ask me what happens, it's not GK, but more than GK, that is current affairs. What happens in an event? Today something breaks, something happens. One person writes a opinion piece about that 2 days later. Then the story keeps developing. Then the articles keep changing. right? So a story develops over a period of time. Agar farmer protest tha, so it developed over a period of time in terms of this thing, right? So whatever happens, it all stories say, be it Russia's build up in Ukraine, it happens over a period of time. So every day, if you're reading any one newspaper, right? So it can be TOI, it can be Hindu, it can be the New Indian Express, any one newspaper, right? Ensure that you're reading that. Only don't read the crime news, that part of it, third page, leave aside. Sports page, anyway, you'll read, but read the sports page, and all of you are going to become MBAs. So please read that business page, that one page business page. Please start reading. Initially, you won't understand head or tail of it, but read, do some research on something you read, because you cannot be wanting to do a degree in business administration and not this thing. So it can be TOI, Deepika, it can be New Indian Express, or it can be it can be the Hindu as well, right? If you want to read it online, so I think online, because most of the things have gone into what you call magazine sort of a space, I would still think that hardcore old fashioned newspaper is much better, this thing, right? Yeah. So the business news, you can read the business page of TOI, right? So anyway, you'll read the sports, this needs to be done, Romil, from now until CAT, right? So you read so don't read the crime news, which is usually in the third or fourth pages. Read the front page, read the sports news, anyway you're going to read that one page of business, one page of international, and editorials, right? Editorials, there are quite a few. Read any one editorial that you find interesting. Any one editorial that you find interesting, you read that. Even if you don't read that's this thing. So e-version or physical paper, anything is fine. I think I genuinely like physical papers, because uh, most of the time online, the concentration required, and say somehow you're searching in various sections, essentially it becomes, after a point, you zone out and you get distracted, this and that. There are ads that are popping up, and then there is pop-ups, and it's too noisy. So I would say a physical paper is always better, because this is the business page and these are the stories. These stories seem interesting and you read that. Yeah. Deepika, was just, and I think most newspapers, I think, have a local edition, right? So the Times of India Delhi edition or whatever, I think page, so it's not the supplement, but somewhere inside there'll be a, crime news for sure, right? So Anshika, if paper is not available in the town, it's fine. Then you can definitely read an e-newspaper. It is fine, right? So take up reading one magazine / newspaper, every day. So that is something that you should do. I would say one magazine and one newspaper, and that should be fine. Right? So yeah, that should be a good enough investment into that. Yeah. The last one, the last skill that also. Now, Achyut says, can we listen to business news daily from the news channels? Yeah, you can listen to read, because anyway that reading thing also will get taken care of, right? Reading speed and other stuff will get taken care of, so that's why I think reading will be a better option, right? Economist as a magazine is wonderful. So Economist, but if I would say, if you're already interested in economics and you have a background and you can read that stuff, yes, that's definitely something that you should read. If you want to start with something international, I wouldn't mind, say, even suggesting the New York Times. Correct? The New York Times is also quite a good place to start off with respect to an international thing. Yeah. Now, talking about 7 skills, what are the skills we spoke about so far? We spoke about reading speed. We spoke about reasoning skills. We spoke about calculation skills. We spoke about solving efficiency. We spoke about communication skills. We spoke about general awareness. So those are the 6 ones so far. And the 7th one that we're coming to is people skills. Now, knowingly or unknowingly, you have to understand that you're always making an impression, and this impression, the first 5 minutes or first 10 seconds in which you're, say, appearing in front of a panel in an interview, or you've joined campus and there is a group discussion, or in a physical interview, people make impressions very, very fast, right? And unfortunately, you've chosen a profession where you need to take people along. The higher you rise up, the more people you need to take along with you, right? That's the profession that you've chosen, right? So even if you're into finance or any other thing, taking people along is a very, very core skill. So if you were an extremely introverted or an extremely extroverted person also, you need to find the middle path. Those who are okay in both sense, it is fine. So introverts, those who are shy, they don't speak much, so start by making eye contact, smiling and greeting people. I know it's the pandemic and all of that, so but if you want to turn the camera on and do that, but post the pandemic when you're meeting, so ensure that you're always making eye contact with the person, right? So it can be just your, if you're taking an auto also, just thanking that guy after, so wherever it is, so making a small thing of greeting people and thanking people and smiling. These are the small things: eye contact, smile, hello, thank you. Four things introverts can start doing, so that you just become more comfortable around people. Yeah. Extroverts start by listening more and talking just a bit less, right? I'm not saying a lot, but just let people come to you rather than, hogging the limelight. Yeah. Yesterday morning, I was sitting in a coffee shop and there were three people, and one guy was just, and all of them were working professionals, only. And, yeah, good, Kushi, that you're an ambivert and it helps. So this one guy was one guy and two girls, and all of them were, say, maybe in their mid 30s and marketing professionals or whatever. And the guy was just not stopping. He was just at it in terms of, he was so extroverted. I was like, okay, this is just, 10 o'clock in the morning. I'd rather that you just shut up for a bit, in terms of, say, taking it easy. So start by listening more and talking just a bit less. And both introverts and extroverts, this is a big thing. I feel there are two kinds of people who stop, but the people who always cry about everything and they're constantly cribbing how their teacher is bad, their boss is bad, and this person is bad, and that person is bad. And people who don't whine about things, right? My suggestion is, don't be a whiner. So those who are whine don't get shit done, and they get very irritating to all the rest. अरे वो हमेशा रोता रहता है पहले, right? So even in firms, so even I have very, very awesome colleagues, at IMS, very bright people and everything, or even outside also. But there are some people who are saying, Acha, we know that this guy will first script for 15 minutes. Our job is to first listen to the script for 15 minutes and then, start talking about work, right? So all wonderful people. But all said and done, I would say the both external, stop cribbing and start managing yourself better. I think that is a great trait in terms of taking people along later. How do you make time for everything? Watch movies instead of TV shows, right? So because TV shows, you know what it is, once you start, it's just an endless loop. I'm not sure how many of you have the self control to watch one episode a day. I don't think that really can, happen. So watch movies instead of TV shows. Watch one movie a week, and say by next year, that 31st March 2022 is a typo, right? By next year, you can easily watch at least 50 movies, right? If you watch one movie a week, you can easily watch 50 movies by the time you get into a B school. Yeah. So, and 50 movies is good enough, right? Any movie recommendations, Chirag? As I said, movie recommendations, you can easily, as I said, look at all movies by Tom Hanks, right? All of Tom Hanks movies. Tom Cruise's non-Mission Impossible movies, and movies starring Julia Roberts. All of these movies are fairly good because it's a particular. You can start from Forrest Gump, and Tom Hanks has enough and more movies. Tom Cruise has enough and more good movies. So each of them will have at least 6 to 10 really good movies, and that itself will be 30 movies. And then you can, I think, you guys live in the generation of the listicle. So if you say greatest Hollywood movies of all time or great Hollywood movies of all time, you can go at. These are the movies that I would say. These are the actors that I would suggest. Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, and Julia Roberts. Yeah. So read the newspaper. How to manage time? Read the newspaper or the magazine during your most suboptimal time. So you know that this time, say immediately after a heavy meal, you're not likely to feel, you need to give your body, the brain is at least sluggish at that time. So at that time, Shivanshu, podcast and all, if podcast, yeah, if there is I don't know podcasters with great English and dialogue and all of that, so I'm not really sure, because movie dialogues are, because it's a slightly creative thing, so I think the words and the dialogues and all of that will make more impact. So you know that after you have a meal, you're slightly sluggish, and that time you're not going to do cat prep or anything else. So at that time, do the newspaper or magazine reading, because the body needs, enough and more, attention and energy to digest that. So that is something. Before sleeping also can be a great this thing, but only thing is that there'll be very little reading and immediately you'll fall asleep. Right. So before sleeping, if you do that, just ensure that you're sitting and reading it, and then you go to sleep. Don't sleep lying down. Don't read, lying down in bed. Then most important thing is you have to rebuild your day and your state of mind. I think with smartphones, with everything else, basically we have given off our attention. I'm not excluding myself from it also. We've literally given off our attention to all the social media channels and apps. So their job is to just mine our attention and make money out of it, right? And endless YouTube channels with endless amount of commentary and shit and everything else, right? And once you start finding out even about cat also, there are endless number of YouTube. Nothing will end. So you know that if anybody has ever been on a fitness trip trying to build your body and stuff, anybody's done that? So if anybody's done that, you would see that the amount of shit on YouTube is absolutely crazy, right? When every small thing, that's like the amount, it's just absolutely mind boggling, right? If you go down that rabbit hole, you're never coming out. So I realized that, say, a few years back when I started, I started to work out again and everything. I again started this process, and essentially, what is the end? All of us know what's the end of this YouTube search is that finally you would have bought a whey protein powder. मतलब इस पूरे चीज का सारांश यही होगा कि आपके हाथ में तो एक प्रोडक्ट तो आया होगा, किसी ने थमा दिया होगा, that this thing, right? So I was doing this, and I was like, before starting the workout only, I was like doing crazy research and everything else. And then I just stopped once and I said, because they just, and the worst thing is on YouTube is that everybody starts talking minute signs, minute, this happens exactly, समय lactic acid release होता है, ये होता है, वो होता है, दुनिया भर का stats and information. And it's just that it seems to you as if you're doing a lot of stuff. So then I just stopped and said, my dad was a bodybuilder in the Navy, and he was a medal winning bodybuilder in the Navy, right? And this was in the mid 1970s. Mid 1970s. My dad was a bodybuilder in the Navy. No whey protein, no YouTube videos, nothing. And I asked myself, okay, dad built that body just by working out. And from what I know, he used to, soak peanuts and soak chana and have that. So my mother, after she got married, and she was like, this man doesn't seem to work at all. Half the time he goes to the gym, oils the body, and keeps eating chana. That seems to be his work most of the time, because he was part of the sports team and stuff. So, so yeah. So I'm like, if he did all of that without any protein powder, nothing, just working out and eating this thing, I think absolutely, that it's, then there was no reason for me to do anything, right? Me to do all of this, research. Right? So that's how, I stopped that research, completely. And I've just started, and I just like, just work out, and I don't fuss around, say, exact timing, this, that. You eat and you eat fairly healthy and you're chill. Right? So what you'd have to figure out a way is that, whatever eats your time, right? And you need to find a way to rebuild your state of mind. Start slow, right? Not that from today you'll just get complete, but starts to create that time or space for that cat prep, and also mind space for that, right? It should not be stressful for you and everything. So create that mind space for you to be able to prepare that. And so slowly, as you go closer to the exam, ensure that you're completely only thinking about that and nothing else. So I'm not somebody who says that, no, the big thing is that always all of us have long-term goals is to do this, right? I want to get into Ahmedabad Jana. Definitely, I want to get into Ahmedabad, right? But right now, I will sit and watch something, on YouTube, or I will, watch a show on Netflix, or I'll open Amazon Prime and binge on a series. So our short-term goals always end up crashing with our, short-term decisions always are always at loggerheads with our long-term goals, right? So always ask yourself, is what I'm doing going to help me get into an IIM or not? They just always do that. So just, you have that in mind as to what you're doing. Right? So that is a very, very important this thing. And I'm not saying that, you don't need to have fun. I absolutely, and somebody always advocates having a good time, but you have a time slot for the good time. Yeah, this is the time when I'm going to meet my friends. If you like, this is the time I'm going. So that you have a time. This is the time I'm going to watch something for this amount of time. So ensure that you're setting your time and doing that within that time, right? Uh, all the rest, the only thing I can say is that most people don't do, or none of us, very few people do things unless it's a do or die situation. So it will be each of us will, when do we fear that death ki acha abhi pani sar ke upar chala gaya, everybody has a different threshold. So anyway, don't worry, each one will reach their threshold, but if you can say start before and ensure that the addiction, you are able to build your day better, in a state of mind day, in a better, I think it will help you then. So this blog I have called the catwriter.com. Parul, for example, you've asked any advice for working professionals, right? So on that, I have a blog post called How to Manage Your Work and CAT Prep, right? So you can go to CatStrat and you will see that, right? So open the blog. Don't open it on your phone. Open it on a bigger screen, on laptop or a desktop, because then you can see the categories and you can navigate easily. You can see CatStrat, you can give verbal strat and DILR strat. So it will have all these posts in terms of how to prepare for a retake, how to prepare, improve your this percentiles, how to manage work in CAT prep. All of this stuff will be there. Almost anything that you might think of at various stages of your prep, it will be there. I keep posting once a week, but you can always go back and looking at this thing. Deepika, ambivert actually means somebody who's both, who's neither extremely extroverted or introverted. Somewhere in the middle, there is a right balance. So this is the blog. So I have to go there, and every week I usually put up one post. The last few posts obviously will be around GDPI, because that was what it was. But yeah, very soon again it will go back to the cat prep stuff. But you can always go back and read that. Yeah. And something, these are, I think this is just, that we have a IMS India channel. So most of our stuff will be there in this one. Instagram is there. I don't know why we are on Instagram, because we don't need to be there. But yeah, because standard thing, everybody's on Instagram. So I suppose that is why, that is there. Yeah. This is possibly the, for today's session, the last piece of advice that I can, giving, this thing. Yeah. Stop watching motivation videos and get motivated. Right? So, because everybody does this, the only guy, if these motivation videos worked, then at least why are there newer and newer and newer motivation videos coming out non-stop, one after the other? At some point, if there are 10 motivational gurus in the world, that 10 should be sufficient. You don't need time for the 11th guy. Only goes to show that that doesn't affect anybody beyond a particular point. As I said, everybody will know at a particular point in their life कि पानी सर से ऊपर चला गया. Usually that सर से ऊपर चला गया, for most people with respect to health or fitnesses, they will meet some disaster or whatever, whatever. So that sort of this thing, right? So only they make money, the people who make those videos. So stop watching motivation videos and get motivated, because finally you guys are going to be MBAs, and how much, if you only need motivation, then how are people under you going to feel inspired and motivated and stuff? Yep. So that's the session for today. I'll be doing many more sessions as we go ahead. So as we go ahead, I'll be doing sessions about specializations, about profile building, about everything. So about profile building, I think somebody else will take. So about how to get better at learning math. So throughout the course of your prep, from now till next February, you will see me once a month. Sorry, you will see me once a month doing some session or the other, at least once a month, sometimes more than that. Apart from that, you will also see me as part of the IMS CAT video feedback. So some of the videos, CATs, I'll do a video feedback, not all, but say 3 to 4 of them. Right. So specializations, not after you get calls, you need to for your profiles. If you're looking at CMAT this year, then maybe that, but specializations I'll be looking at now only, because how do you build your profile depending upon what specialization you want to do, and how do you want, what you want to do during an MBA. Right? So the session is officially over. Thank you guys. See you guys later.